everybody, welcome back to the Dex, where we cover trivia and strategy for a different Pokemon each week. I'm Pokekel.
And I'm Channeler Alex. This week, we're finally covering that rascally rodent we've all known and loved from the very first day Pokemon ever came out.
Alex?
That's right, everybody. Number 25, the Big Cheese, Ash's little buddy.
I don't think that's the...
Get ready, everyone. It's
Mimikyu.
Pikachu. Wait, what did you say? Because I swear that didn't sound like Pikachu.
That's because it wasn't, you dingus. We did Pikachu like 4 years ago.
We did?
Yeah, we
Damn,
did.
I feel old.
You are old.
I am?
Well, you're not that old.
Tight. So who are we doing again today?
It's Mimikyu.
Oh, what? I love Mimikyu.
Duh, you dongo.
Mimikyu's the disguised Pokemon from Gen 7. It's a creepy ghost fairy type who actually does kind of look like Pikachu, which makes sense since its name is literally a portmanteau of the words mimic you, which means to copy or attempt to act like another.
Mimics are also a type of fictional monster that are meant to be able to change the shape of its body to disguise itself as an inanimate object. In video games, you often see these guys as chests. If the player is foolish enough to open one, Mimics usually reveal their powerful arms and legs to pummel anyone who gets close, and uses some sort of adhesive to hold on to anything that touches it. Mimikyu might not be as sticky, but it certainly punishes you for revealing its true nature.
The Pokedex entries from Sun and Moon explain that its true appearance is completely unknown, and that once, a scholar peeked under its rag, saw what was underneath, got overwhelmed with terror, and died from the shock. But other sources have even claimed that death actually comes from a mysterious illness it might give you. As you can imagine, this leaves it feeling pretty lonely a lot of the time, so it wears its disguise constantly to get closer to other people in Pokemon. Mimikyu of the Opera confirmed?
Not quite, but another question we had was why Pikachu? And it was the official Sun and Moon site that gave us the answer. It states that the rising popularity of Pikachu-style merchandise around 20 years ago is the reason Mimikyu makes itself look like Pikachu. In fact, this Pokemon is dreadfully lonely and thought that it would be able to make friends with humans if only it looked like Pikachu. It's simultaneously kind of sad and kind of creepy, but super cute, right?
Sure, but that's not the only reason it wears a disguise. See, Mimikyu's ability is also called Disguise, which allows it to escape damage from an enemy's attack one time. But then its disguise breaks and becomes all floppy. According to its alternate busted form Pokedex entries, this doesn't really hurt Mimikyu per se, but it does make it really sad, and it has to work through the night to fix it for next time. Dang.
Now that may sound sad, but for whatever reason, Mimikyu's plan totally worked, and his reception among Pokemon fans was absolutely huge. We love him! In fact, he's so popular he even got his own cute rap video on the Japanese Pokemon channel where it raps about itself in Japanese. I don't want to get a copyright strike, so just Google Mimikyu's song English if you want to watch it, but the lyrics are things like, I like to be friends with everyone, so I copied Pikachu's look. Does this outfit look close? It's handmade, isn't it amazing? It is amazing, Mimikyu, it really is.
Wow, you know, I've seen that rap, and I gotta say, it's pretty precious. I wonder if we'll ever get an English version way later like we did with the Slowpoke song. Maybe that was just a Slowpoke joke.
Whatever. Point is, Mimikyu is well loved, but as we all know, the more popular a Pokemon is, the more crazy theories pop up about it on the deep interwebs. But there's one popular Mimikyu theory out there right now that, well, frankly, we think is flat out wrong.
Right, but like good researchers, we would never say something like that without the evidence to back it up. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's ridiculous segment, Pokebusters. You gotta stop saying Mythbusters, bro.
What?
Okay, so first, the theory. A popular fan theory of late has suggested that the true identity of Mimikyu under the rag is the PORYGON from the episode of the anime said to cause seizures in Japan. It was actually Pikachu who caused the seizure-inducing light show that occurred in the episode, but PORYGON always gets the blame and hasn't been in the anime since. The theory states that to get back in everyone's good graces, this PORYGON took up disguising itself as the Pokemon who got off scot-free and doomed it to a life of misery. Pretty bold theory, I know, but let's look at each piece of it a little closer and tell you exactly why we're not buying it.
The first piece of evidence everyone cites is that Pokedex entry that states the scholar who saw Mimikyu's true form died from shock. Some people think that it might refer to the Porygon-related incident from 1997 known as Pokemon shock, which is said to have caused over 700 Japanese children to have seizures. First of all, shock is much too generic of a medical term to be referring specifically to this incident, since it can mean anything from allergic reaction to heart failure to trauma, so it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and secondly, if you saw our Porygon episode, you'd know that while a small percentage of children actually did have photosensitive seizures, nearly all 700 children taken to the hospital that day did not, and it more likely was just a case of mass hysteria. Furthermore, the incident was extremely embarrassing to both the Pokemon Company and Nintendo. so it's pretty unlikely that they would just turn around and reference it again in-game, especially in such a direct and whimsically mysterious way.
Yeah, but that's not all. Another thing theory crafters have noted is that in Sun and Moon, Porygon is given to the player in the Ether House, which is just up the road from where Mimikyu is found at the abandoned Thrifty Megamart. And not only that, but the room where the Ether Dude gives it to you happens to have a Mimikyu hanging out in it too. This is kind of fun and exciting at first, but to that, we say remember that thinking correlation equals causation is kind of a logical fallacy.
Yeah, like the Ether House is where Acerola lives, but that's because her family is well connected and supports the scientific organization that Ether claims to be. Since she trains ghost Pokemon, it would make sense that there would be one in the house, and the Ether scientist that gives you Porygon explains that it's scientifically important and hopes that by giving it to you, it will help inspire the younger generation of trainers to care more about science. To me, that's much more on brand with what Pokemon's core message has been since the beginning.
And speaking of the beginning, the final thing that people like to cite for this theory is that blurb about the rising popularity of Pikachu merch 20 years ago. Because the Pokemon Shock episode that Pikachu caused in the Porygon episode, that happened almost exactly 20 years ago too. This is technically true, but if you remember, the entirety of last year was dedicated to the celebration of Pokemon 20, because it wasn't just that episode that came out 20 years ago, it was the whole Pokemon franchise, guys. Plus, if you want to split hairs, Electric Soldier Porygon aired in Japan on December 18th, 1997, 16th, 1997. Sun and Moon released November 16th, 2017, which is a month too early, and Mimikyu itself was revealed all the way back in July of that year.
Yeah, it's much more likely that the rising popularity of Pikachu 20 years ago is a reference to how Pokemon totally exploded in popularity right after release. Anyone alive at that time, including us, can tell you that Pokemon was an insane phenomenon back then, and with Pikachu being the series mascot, of course a Pokemon looking to gain popularity would disguise itself as not only the most recognizable Pokemon there is, but one of the most recognizable animated characters of the last 100 years.
And look, we get it, theories are always fun, but don't let what you want the answer to be blind you from realistically looking at the most likely scenario. Mimikyu is a previously unknown ghost Pokemon that wants to look like Pikachu. This desire for acceptance led it to mimic the Pokemon we love most, and Porygon's probably not part of the story at all. We should give credit where credit is due. Mimikyu gained an immediate cult following because it so clearly captures the feeling of simply wanting to be accepted. We can all relate to that, can't we? And you know what? The Pokemon trainers of the world said, yes, we love you, Mimikyu, and that's great. Hashtag hope as always.
Dang, dude, that was beautiful.
Right? What a nice little victory for Mimikyu.
But we're not done yet.
That's right, we still gotta tell people how to win.
Yep, BGC 17 Mimikyu Battle Strategy starts right now.
Heck yeah, dude. Pokemon.
You know how we've been covering a bunch of Pokemon that work really well in a Trick Room? Mimikyu might be your go-to for setting that up. He's a great Trick Roomer thanks to his ability to disguise, but also because there's not a complete consensus about exactly what moves Mimikyu's gonna have, so it keeps your opponent guessing. Start with an Adamant one and EV train it in HP, attack, and maybe a little in defense to taste.
Mimikyu already gets one free hit from disguise, but why not give him a second one to make sure that you get that Trick Room up? As long as you're confident predicting taunts, give him the Focus Sash to hold, or if taunts are just too much, you can always go with the Mental Herb. Just get that Trick Room up so that you can move on to the next part of your plan.
And basically, that plan is either switch out, attack right now, or try and sneak in a Swords Dance, which takes Mimikyu's attack from kind of annoying to holy cannoli, that's a spicy meatball! And between Shadow Claw and Play Rough, you'll have enough stab bonus and coverage to be very threatening to a lot of different pokes. Just remember to play smart, and always keep your opponent guessing, and you can go far.
But of course, that's not the only way to train a Mimikyu, so as always, here are a few random thoughts.
Mimikyu also has access to some great support moves. You can go for a speedier build and become a pretty solid taunter of your own, or if you're sticking with Trick Room, next turn when you go first, try shoving a Will-O-Wisp down their throat. Personally, I find nothing more frustrating than getting burned when I don't want to be. It's crazy.
If you're more in the Swords Dance aspect of the set than the Trick Room bit, Shadow Sneak can be a great little surprise to keep up your sleeve, and if you want to drop Trick Room altogether, again, go for that speedy build and try setting up for a substitute instead.
A totally other strategy you can use with Mimikyu is based around playing chicken with Destiny Bond. If you use it and then get knocked out, whoever hits you goes down with you, and that might not be a risk some players will want to take.
And finally, when in doubt, just toss a Z-Stone on there. Both Twinkle Tackle and Never-Ending Nightmare can be devastating, especially after a Swords Dance. But Ghost TMZ has the added bonus of allowing you to do Destiny Bond Z too, which still knocks out anyone who knocks you out, but now draws all the attacks towards you if possible, eliminating some of that guesswork from using that attack right.
And that's it! Everybody's favorite buddy Pikachu, I mean Mimikyu. Just don't look at it too closely or you'll die.
If you want to debunk some Pokemon theories yourself, even ours, start a thread in the comments below. Or if intelligent and civil discussion with people who love trading, battling, and genuinely nerding out about Pokemon, why not head over to our official Discord? The link is in the description below, and it's genuinely just a fun place to go chill.
Thanks again for watching, and thanks to our Patreon supporters, without whom we'd probably die from exposure in the winter months. And don't forget to let us know who you want to see on the mini-dex. It's starting next week. I'm Channeler Alex.
And I'm Pokekells. Tune in next week for another outwardly episode of
The Dex.
Outwardly. Otherworldly.
That's fine.